So I'll kick off the intros, and then we can go around on the Keybank side. Salem Bayed, been with the bank for a couple months now. A pretty good history, 5 years or so in CRA. Prior to that, my background was in risk management, so compliance risk management for about 6 years, and then 9 years of credit risk management prior to that, over a number of different institutions. My experience with PolicyMap, though, has been exclusive within my CRA tenure. It's really been a great tool for trying to visualize geographic risk that can manifest. That it's really difficult to kind of get a good understanding of those types of concerns or types of issues. We've already worked with pretty much everybody on the phone here and shown them some of the outputs of PolicyMap, but certainly looking to learn some more. I would just encourage everybody on the line to feel free to ask questions if there's anything that you're seeing that you're, if you have questions on it, or if there's things that you'd like to see if we can do through PolicyMap. I'll turn over to Julia, who's on my team as well. Julia, want to introduce yourself?
Yep, sure. Thanks, Salem. Hi, Brian. Julia Shea. I'm with the CRA team, relatively new to the CRA world. Been in this role for about a little over a year. So looking forward to learning more about PolicyMap. I have used PolicyMap, the free version, so I guess wasn't really seeing the full capabilities of it. So excited to learn more about it today.
So, Bob, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, Brian. I'm Bob McAvoy. I'm also in the CRA compliance under Salem. Most of the mapping that I've been involved with is through CRA Wiz, and I too have used the free version a few times. So I'm looking forward to getting a better handle on overlaying the LMI areas with a lot of the minority data also. It seems to be very much more agile than CRA Wiz, so I'm looking forward to learning more about it. Thank you.
So next, Damon, if you want to introduce yourself. Brian, what I'll say here is that there's potential sales opportunity. Damon is leaving the bank in the next 2 weeks to go to Bank of the West. I'm not sure if they have a subscription or not, but like I said, I want to sell them on it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah. Hey, Brian. This is Damon. Yeah, I've been with Keybank for 25 years. I've been the last 5 years on our CRA team. I don't have any experience with PolicyMap other than just seeing it being used. I do have a little experience using like Tableau and their mapping capabilities, but it seems like PolicyMap has a very stronger mapping capability. So that's what I'm kind of interested in. And as Salem said, I am going to be leaving Key very shortly on to another bank, Bank of the West. I believe they actually do use PolicyMap, and they actually have PolicyMap integrated into their CRA Wiz. So I don't know how they use that, but I remember them saying that they have PolicyMap actually integrated with CRA Wiz.
I'll go next. I'm Amanda Petrak. I'm the Corporate Responsibility Officer for all of Northern Ohio. I don't have much experience with PolicyMap at all, other than what our CRA team has showed us in various demonstrations and through various webinars that we've had, but just looking forward to learning a lot more today.
Thanks, Amanda.
And I'll go next. I'm Debbie Trujillo. I'm the CRO for Colorado, Utah, and Idaho. I have not used PolicyMap. I've seen Salem use it and immediately said, I want more training in this. And he immediately said, absolutely, we'll put you on the training. So that's why I'm here. I did have an opportunity to play in there once I got authorization to go inside. So I'm excited to learn more about how I can use this.
Hi, Brian. I'll go next. Lakeisha Jordan, Corporate Responsibility Officer for Connecticut, Massachusetts, Hudson Valley, Metro New York. I've been with the bank about 4.5 years. I do not have any experience with using PolicyMap, but see that there's a lot of potential to support the work that we do in this role as the CRO. So I'm excited to hear and learn more about it.
And Chanel, I think you're the last one.
Hi, everyone. Brian Chanel Smith here. I work on the corporate responsibility team on community initiatives and social impact. So I haven't used PolicyMap, but I come from sort of like the community organizing planning world. And at my previous job, we have, at the Trust Republic Land, we have a similar tool or had a similar tool for parks. That overlaid parks data with health data, economic disparity data, and brought in all these elements. So it's very similar for us to understand where park gaps were in communities. So excited to use this type of tool at the bank.
Great. Well, thank you for all the introductions, and it's all really helpful to hear. And it sounds like there's a mix of familiarity with PolicyMap. So for some of you, this may be kind of a refresh, or in some cases, maybe you're seeing sort of some of the newer functionality of the tool. A couple of just picking up on a couple of interesting notes that Chanel had mentioned. Trust Republic Land, we're actually working probably in the next few months on incorporating some of the park serve data from Trust Republic Land into PolicyMap, so you'll be able to see kind of like park locations and things like that. So not sure if there's going to be kind of overlap in terms of your role kind of with the bank now, but it's just an interesting intersection. And then I know Damon had mentioned the CRA Wiz PolicyMap integration. There is there's some we work with a company called Wolters Kluwer, who I believe kind of manages, kind of deploys the CRA Wiz application, and I guess they have they do have certain banks that actually use PolicyMap through their CRA Wiz application. So we kind of have a mix. We have some banks that kind of just have their own separate subscription to PolicyMap, like Keybank, and then we have some that kind of have more of this integrated, directly with the Wolters Kluwer application. So, so it's interesting to hear that Bank of the West kind of falls into that group. So I can do, I can provide just sort of a quick background on myself and PolicyMap, and then we can kind of jump into the actual demonstration. So my name's Brian Blacker, and I basically, my role at PolicyMap is data services lead, but that basically just means I work with customers. So I work with customers that kind of, run the gamut from, financial institutions like Keybank and others that are doing similar work kind of in, related to CRA and visualizing data related to CRA, and then also, lots of other different types of organizations across, public health, community development, economic development, state and local governments, things like that. So, the background on PolicyMap. So, just for anybody who's sort of less familiar with who we are, so we're a nationwide online mapping and data platform. We're a relatively kind of small team. We have about 20 folks employed at PolicyMap, but we call ourselves a nationwide tool because our data has kind of nationwide coverage. It's a tool that combines some public data sources, so things from the census and data from HUD and CDC and CRA, as well as some proprietary data that we license on things like school performance and home sale activity. We combine all those things in an easy to use mapping and reporting tool. So you're going to see when we jump into the demo that the data covers, lots of different areas: demographics, income, housing, health, education, other areas, and PolicyMap use cases are, research, market studies, business planning, site selection, grant applications, impact analysis, overall data visualization. And I mentioned a couple of, some of the different kind of customers that we work with. We started in 2008 as part of the Reinvestment Fund, who some of you guys may have heard of. So they're CDFI based in Philadelphia. And so this was originally an internal tool that sort of spun off as they realized that other organizations could use a similar resource. I think that's probably it in terms of the background. I'm going to go ahead. I'll share my screen at this point so you guys can actually see the PolicyMap landing page. All right, so yes, so everyone should be able to see the PolicyMap landing page. So a couple of just housekeeping items before jumping into the overview here. So as some folks may know or maybe have seen in some of our communications, so we're in the process right now of transitioning from an older version of the PolicyMap tool, which some folks may have used previously, to a new version of the PolicyMap tool, so kind of our new platform. And most of the training is going to be in the new platform, but I always like to mention it because there are some things where, depending on everything that we might get to, we may have to kind of toggle over to the legacy version of the tool. And I'll just kind of show you how you can toggle back and forth between them.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian. I know that some of the things that we do, we want to upload data points or create data points on the map. So it looks like right now, if you want to do that, you have to do it in the legacy tool.
Yep. So the data loader, which allows you to upload your own address data, is still in the legacy tool. So that's one of those things. Yeah, that's kind of one of the, I know that's like a common use case specifically on sort of the CRA side of things. So I'm going to go through kind of how to do that over on the legacy side. So I'll start with just an overview of basic functionality, orient kind of the site, navigation and things like that, and then we can get into some of those advanced features, so including using that self-service data loader. So PolicyMap is a web-based tool, so you can access it from any computer with internet access. So you would just go to policymap.com, and this is the landing page that you would see. So you can click on the login button in the top right to put in your username and password. So your username is usually going to be, your email address, and then your password is usually when you're first set up, you'll get like a temporary password, which you can change after you log in for the first time. There's also that forgot password link just to get a link to reset your own password right there from the login modal. So let me just refresh my map so that you'll kind of see what you would typically see when you log into PolicyMap, which is going to be this screen. So it's going to be kind of this full view of the United States. So always like to point out support resources just so that folks kind of have like some guides and tutorials and things like that to go to, after this overview. So up in the top right-hand corner, this link is to our support page, which has, it is like a searchable, help docs page. So if you wanted to, search for, something related to custom regions, you can keyword search, see the different entries and posts that you can search through. And these usually have, screenshots and in some cases kind of short little videos to help you, navigate how to do different functionality throughout the tool.
Hey, Brian, just getting some feedback that some folks aren't able to see the screen. Is everybody able to see the screen okay? It minimized itself, or Microsoft Teams for some reason minimized itself on my end. I had to restore it, so just want to make sure everybody can see the content.
I'm good. I can see.
I can see it.
Good also.
And one thing I have heard just anecdotally from others, sometimes is like if it's a resolution issue, sometimes just turning off your camera, although most folks already have their cameras off, but sometimes turning off your camera helps with the screen sharing resolution.
Okay, sounds like we're good. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the support page. There's also this what's new area of the support page where we just kind of maintain like an ongoing feed of data updates as sort of different data is added to the site or updated. So you'll see like, we just added this interesting new data, which I can show an example of during the demonstration, but data on PPP loans greater than $150,000. So we have all that there captured in that what's new section. On here, there's also, just like a contact us. This will just go to like our direct support email address, info@policymap.com. And so that's just monitored by a couple of people. So for like just sort of general support questions or just sort of like you're seeing an error or something like that, you can also always use that contact us button there or just directly email info@policymap.com. So that's the support page. And in terms of toggling between the new platform and the legacy platform, just to the left of that support link, you'll see this go to PolicyMap Legacy, which when you click on that link, that takes you over to the legacy platform. You'll see it's just like a little bit of like an older looking user interface. And then when you're here in legacy, you can toggle to the new platform by clicking kind of that same location to go to the new maps. So just kind of you can go back and forth as you need to. You'll also see in certain parts of the new platform, it might tell you, in this case, like the data loader, which we were talking about, to upload data, go to the legacy platform. So you'll see kind of that it'll direct you over to legacy if it's something that hasn't been rolled out yet. So in terms of just like orientation on the site, you can, click down, click the left click on your mouse and drag to navigate to different parts of the country. You can use the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. So it should be, pretty sort of, if you use like Google Maps, any other web-based mapping application, that should feel pretty familiar in terms of, getting to an area where you need to be. As you zoom in, you'll start to see like, more detail populate on the base map. And in terms of key functionality, one of the key pieces of functionality is this set location bar above the map window. So this allows you to search for like a specific address or a city or a county or a zip code to actually navigate to that area on the map. So if I wanted to go to like a zip code in Ohio, you can type that in. Once I select it, zooms me into zip code 44109 in the Cleveland area. And then, as I said, you'll see like the additional base map details populate as you're zoomed in closer on the map. There's also a drop down here from that location bar. So if you like needed to go to a specific census tract or wanted to navigate through some of these other built-in boundaries like congressional districts or, state legislative districts, these do have, basically there are these drop down, drill down menus where you can navigate to a particular district. And it'll again just kind of zoom to that area on the map. So in our new platform, you can zoom in, really, really closely on the map to get down to, almost, pretty much like a street level. And as you'll see, you zoom further and further in, you start to see like building footprints, especially in the urban centers. And all the different kind of street details start to show up as well. You can also use this 3D button in the bottom right-hand corner just to kind of like adjust the angle on your map to create more like 3D visualizations. So in terms of customizing, your visual can, produce some interesting looking images, especially in, again, some of the urban centers that have some of that base map detail. And then in terms of just highlighting a couple of other base map options, again, in terms of like customizing your visualization. This gear icon in the bottom right-hand corner is going to have some different base map settings, so you can choose between sort of these four different base map options. There's the standard one, more of a grayscale option. Kind of just shows as, light gray shading. There's a satellite option as well as terrain. So satellite, imagery can be interesting for, different maps you might be looking to create. And then each of these base maps has different features that you can toggle on and off. So you can, uncheck certain boxes to, if you were finding like the road labels to be distracting, uncheck the road labels and those no longer appear on your base map. So there's lots of different options to kind of try out there.
Yeah, I'd say that the transit options are particularly important. A lot of times we're interested in, access to banking, access to our branches. That data can be helpful for urban areas where there's not as many folks who own cars or rely on public transportation.
Yep. Yeah. And this is a relatively new addition is these rail lines and stations, which you'll see as kind of these black lines that in particular in some of the larger cities and larger metro areas you'll see pretty good coverage of. So all the data that's in PolicyMap is going to be organized in these data menus across the top of the map window. So from demographics over to analytics, this is all of the data that's available as part of the PolicyMap data library that we are maintaining and updating on an ongoing basis as the data gets released or updated data gets released from the various sources. So it's all grouped by theme in these menus rather than by different sources, just to help make it easy to find what you're looking for. I'll go through kind of quickly, the different menus and where you can find different things and try and highlight some of the, data sets that may be of particular interest. So demographics is obviously going to have lots of data on, population by, race and ethnicity. And as you kind of go through these, you'll see that they expand out into more and more specific indicators. So if you go through race, ethnicity, race, Black or African American, then you can select, all regardless of ethnicity or, Hispanic, non-Hispanic. So these all kind of branch out into more and more specific indicators to get to the one that you're looking for. Different age breakdowns, population with disabilities, language. So lots of data that's coming from the census largely. The incomes and spending menu has some data on median family incomes, median, household incomes. It's going to have lots of poverty indicators that can be quite specific. The housing menu has some point level data on, like subsidized housing locations, from HUD, low-income housing tax credit projects. This is also where we have home sale data that we license from Moody's Analytics, as well as some, housing price change in housing price index, home values. There's some, vacancy data on residential and business vacancy, which is another data set that we license from a source called Velasas List. There is affordability data and cost burden data for both homeowners and renters. Lots of, and then also just sort of, data in general on, rents and homeowners and renters. The lending menu is going to have some mortgage origination data from the FFIEC. So lots of different specific indicators on, mortgage originations and different types of mortgages, mortgage denials. There's also CRA data for small business loans. And then this was the one I was mentioning that we just recently added on SBA data for PPP loans. This was actually like loan level, point data set. And then in the lending menus, we'll also find that, obviously one of the layers I'm assuming you guys will use most heavily, the CRA eligibility layers on, eligible tracks, track median family income. There's also bank locations, credit union branches, and CDFI locations as well.
Hey, Brian, it's Julia.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? So the PPP loans that you just talked about, can you just talk a little bit about what that layer is? PPP loans greater than 150,000.
Yeah, I can kind of just load it on the map too, if you just to kind of show what this looks like. So it's data that was released by SBA that is loan level and has lots of interesting attributes, but it's just for those PPP loans that were issued for dollar amounts greater than $150,000. So it's point level, so we display it as points on the map. So there's over like 1 million points included in this data set. And if you click on this, you'll see like the individual attributes for each of these is actually really, really interesting. I mean, there's information on the business itself in terms of like location, the details as far as like whether it's women-owned, minority-owned, whether it's in a low, moderate income community, different industry sector information, and then there's details on the loan itself as far as the amounts and the lender. So it's really, really interesting data that we're really excited to have in here in PolicyMap. And we, like I said, just recently added it in the last week.
Very cool. Thank you.
So like, some of the interesting things like that you can do with this data, this is jumping ahead a little bit to like interacting with points, but you can, could have like this data, and this is really powerful because of the amount of points on the data in the data set and the fact that you can almost kind of in some ways use this data as like a, like a proxy for just generally like where businesses are located and where like minority owned businesses are located. So you can use like all of these different filters to look at,
Oh, wow, yeah.
like, okay, yeah, like which ones are identified as minority owned businesses. Maybe you want like specifically minority owned businesses that have, fewer than 50 employees or something like that. And kind of see like which ones kind of meet those different filter criteria. So it's really, really interesting. The one caveat with it is just that there's lots on some of these filters. There's lots that are flagged in the data set as being unknown. So like minority owned, things like, number of jobs,
we know the
like number of
struggle.
employees. Yeah, but like you'll see there's, if you look at something like the, race of owner and do unknown, like there's lots of points that
It's the majority.
stay on the map because lots of people don't actually, it's a lot of times it's like an optional thing for them to fill out. So but still can be really, really kind of interesting.
Yeah, the challenge is with us that we're typically limited to just the data that we have, so a much smaller data set. But when you're talking about over 1 million data points, you can now start to use it for something like this, which is that proxy analysis, because you have a larger number of valid data points versus us, where we might only have, if we're talking about minority-owned businesses, we might only have a dozen dots in Cleveland. Probably have more, but you get the idea is that we're not able to use our own data to draw conclusions about things like that. But when we have an entire industry's worth of data, we can.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, and this one is also pretty neat because of the fact that there's so many points in this data set. We actually had to, we also kind of in tandem rolled out a new kind of toggle on the display of the points to be able to look at, you can either see like just all the points, or you can kind of see like where there's clusters that pop out by clicking on this clusters toggle up here in the display up at the point legend. So it'll kind of like show you like where the areas like pop in terms of kind of giving you like a little bit of like a heat map type of effect with all of these points on the map. So it's kind of interesting to kind of look at that. And similarly, you can like apply filters and then look at like clustering of, minority owned businesses or, businesses, small businesses, those kinds of things. So
is there any plan to roll that feature out for data that we upload?
So for the, I don't know about the data loader data. I can ask about the self-service data loader data. It's a good question. but I know that we're going to be that kind of clustering display on points is something right now it's just on this PPP data, but it is something that we're going to be kind of rolling out for all of the point data in PolicyMap. So, things like school locations and, locations of, different housing, affordable housing projects and things like that. So, but I'll ask about the data loader data to see if that would be something, if that's something that eventually will also be a toggle you can do on data loader data. I haven't asked that yet. So that, I think, just to wrap up quickly, maybe highlight a couple of other areas of the data menu that might be of interest. The economy menu has data on jobs and, jobs by industry, has data on unemployment, different workforce characteristics, and then the education and health menu, there's things like school locations, data on educational attainment, for the resident population, school district performance. There is in the health menu data on, health facilities, different food access, data sets and things like grocery stores and SNAP retail locations, lots of data on like underlying health conditions and risk factors. And then this federal guidelines menu is going to have, the CRA data can also be here. So it's kind of cross-listed in a couple of these data menus, but under additional federal guidelines, CRA eligibility is in here. And then there's also things like opportunity zones, and then some other kind of similar place-based type of programs. So there's a data search bar too. So if you wanted to, type by keyword, you can also do that up here in this data search, which is just to the left of the location search. If you type in CRA, you can look at, track status for CRA eligibility. It'll load that, data layer on the map once you select that from the search results. So the two different types of data in PolicyMap are data layers, which is going to be like the CRA layer, shades areas. In this case, this is more of like a category that it's shading by. We have lots of other data that's like numeric data, shading areas based off of, median income or poverty rates. And then there's the data points, which we kind of talked about with the PPP data, which shows actual, point locations and, schools, hospitals, etc. So, I'm going to load I'll come back to the CRA layer, but I'm going to, and we kind of talked about the PPP data. I'm just going to load like a sample data layer just to show a little bit of like interacting with that data. So if I go to incomes and spending and look at, just sort of a general median family income indicator, I'll load that one on the map from, for this area in Cleveland. So anytime you have a data layer on the map, you'll see a title of the layer up here in the legend, estimated median income of a family between 2015 and 2019. This one comes from the source. You'll see the source is the census. And so, this is going to be the latest 5-year estimate from the Census American Community Survey that we're looking at. If you ever want to see kind of like more detail, these, this eye bubble has like a description of the data layer, the specific data layer that you're looking at, and you'll see like some of them will have kind of more detail to them, especially on things like CRA eligibility. And then this link in the legend also will take you to the data directory entry or data dictionary entry for the particular source that this one's coming from. So it will navigate you to the census entry in our data dictionary and tell you a little bit about the years that are available, the different geographies, when it was last updated in PolicyMap. So all of our sources have this kind of documentation, and you can access it from those links within the legend anytime you have them on the map. So with this layer, the lighter areas are going to be where it's lower median family income, the darker purple areas being where it's higher median family income. So you'll see I'm moving my mouse around, and I'm not actually clicking on anything. I'm just moving my mouse, and this hover will show you, in this case, at the census tract level, based off of how we have this data shaded, what the value is for an individual census tract. And then over on the left-hand side in the legend, you can see that it's there's a light gray shading showing you kind of which of these ranges the selected area that you're kind of hovering over falls within. So if I'm in like over one of these darker purple areas, it'll kind of have light gray shading showing you that I'm in one of those top ranges. And so there's that interactivity between those two. And so you can also, click on actual ranges over here in the legend to just see those areas that are in like the top range, and it'll hide everything else or the top two.
Oh, wow.
And kind of, suppresses the data everywhere else and just shows you those areas that are like in those top 2 ranges on the map. And you can remove those selections just clicking on the X's here. So then if you actually click on an individual area when you have a data layer displayed, so if I click on one of these, it's kind of right in the middle of those 5 ranges on this particular census tract. And when you click on an area with a data layer displayed, you'll see this more detailed info bubble, which will show you, the value for that area that you selected, the census tract, and then the benchmark areas for kind of like the city, county, state, and the U.S. So you can do these quick comparisons to see how does this census tract compare to the county, the state, and the nation. And then there's these change over time charts where you can hover over them to see for the different boundaries how this indicator has changed over time. And then these trend charts, you can expand it out into a full chart by clicking on that see full chart button. And you can add other benchmark areas to this trend chart by selecting, like the Cuyahoga County and state of Ohio. I can add those lines to my trend chart by selecting them down here at the bottom. And then you can just do those quick comparisons again, looking over time, so you can kind of see how this census tract has trended in the same direction over time, right, as the county and the state, but as overall has been lower than the benchmark areas.
Yeah, I would just say that
And so
from my experience, this kind of analysis can be really helpful for trying to identify things like gentrification. You can see upward ticks in income, which might not necessarily be a result of individuals who were historically living there, earning more. The housing values too, that's where you can really see evidence of gentrification as well, where you see an uptick in a certain census tract or a certain neighborhood that doesn't align with the rest of the geographic area. So really useful.
Mm-hmm. And then these trend charts can be downloaded, so you can actually download this image directly or download a CSV of the summary data that's populating the trend chart. So both of those things can be accessed from that little stacked menu up there in the top right. A couple of other just options to show within this legend for the data layer. So you can change the year that you're actually looking at on the map by selecting this year dropdown. So you could look at sort of that same indicator, but for the year 2000 by just selecting that dropdown from the year dropdown. Then there's variables that you can select from. So in this case, it's like a median dollar amount, but there's also percent change variables. So you could look at how these different census tracts, what sort of the percent change value is in that indicator over the last 5 years. Just kind of look at a different visualization of that. And you'll see there's like across different indicators, we may have like estimated percent, estimated, counts or numbers. And so different variable dropdowns that are in there. And then there's different color ramps to change your visual. And then you can also change your ranges. So kind of how these cut points are set or how many cut points there are. So if I select the ranges dropdown, you can see, make this into 3 ranges. And then you can also, drag these different, cut point values if you wanted to just have like the darkest areas be where it's greater than $100,000. You could drag that over there. Then everything just sort of changes on the fly on the map.
Yeah, well, I'd say here for everyone is when we're searching by minority groups or minority areas, we'll typically change the range to 3 ranges. And then we'll do the breakdown that's recognized by the FFIEC for like communities of color. So, anything less than 50% is not considered minority. Greater than 50% to I think 80% is majority minority, and then anything over 80% is high minority. So it's often useful if you're trying to pull that data or visualize, areas based on that regulator definition.
Yeah, and then you'll see that one. So we have under race and ethnicity, we have population of color, non-white. And then I think also in the federal guidelines menu under the CRA eligibility, we have it listed as just sort of minority population, percent of people who are minority. And then, yeah, you could, change your cuts here and have like 50% be your, I guess I'll have to go up here. 80% and 50%. So yeah, a quick way to kind of do what Salem was just talking about. And then there's different, these indicators in PolicyMap are available at different boundaries. So it's going to vary by source. Some sources the data is only available at the county level. Some of it's available at smaller geographies like census tract. But when you have a layer on the map, you'll see this shaded by dropdown to be able to change how you want the data shaded. So if you wanted it at zip code area or county level, you can change that. By default, it's going to be based off of how close or far you're zoomed on the map, but you can change that selection manually. And then you can also use this little lock icon to kind of keep it at census tract level, even if I'm zoomed out way past the state. It won't like flip to show it at the county level or something like that. So so that's a boundary lock icon right there. So we talked about points. The couple of other things I'll mention on points, and I can pull back up the PPP data, is that so we went through, using the filters. You can also change your icons on point data sets. So if you wanted to look at, like a red circle instead of an orange diamond, you can change that using the icon drop down there. And your point data, you'll also have a source to be able to, get to that data dictionary to see more details about the source of this, particular point data set. And then this one has lots and lots of filters and lots of attributes to it. You'll see, other point data sets may have, or obviously you can have different attributes, different filters and things along those lines. But you can also do, in a lot of cases, you'll see across our filters that you can also use color coding. So rather than just saying like, yeah, just show me those that are identified as minority owned, you could also keep all the points on the map, but then, color code those points to see, the different, the different symbology that relates to that filter value. So you'll see there's lots of blue dots, which I was kind of alluding to, lots of unknowns in terms of minority owned businesses, but so
that's awesome. I hadn't even realized that you could break the different categories down. So that right there is a great reason why we wanted to have this training.
Mm-hmm. So you can remove, data points, data layers by clicking on the X's in the legends. That'll, clear them off of the map. And then this reset map button in the bottom right just kind of refreshes the map back out to like the nation, so that you're kind of starting from the beginning again. There's also map boundaries. So you'll see just to the left of the demographics menu is the boundaries menu. And so these are just going to be like boundary overlays. So if you wanted to look at, like add the census tract boundaries so that you can better sort of distinguish where different tracts, start and end, you can add that as an overlay. Or, maybe you're interested in looking at zip codes, overlaying zip codes or, county boundaries or something else. But there's lots of different boundaries in the boundaries menu. And then you can customize the visual on these as well by choosing different line styles, line weights, and different line colors as well. So I'm going to come back to put these PPP loans on again, and we'll just do with like fewer than 50 jobs. So we're just kind of looking at a subset here, but I wanted to come back to something that you may have noticed when we were kind of using this set location bar. But when you do have a data layer or data point on the map, and then you use like the set location bar to select an area, so I can put in, again, like that zip code in Cleveland, and it'll provide the outline for that specific zip code area. You can use some of these buttons from this set location area, this kind of selected location, to clip your map boundary or see sort of the particular data that falls within that selected area. So you can like clip our maps that we're just seeing those points and those census tracts that fall within that selected zip code area. You can toggle that by clicking on the scissors icon here or down here at the bottom. And then you can also look at, click on this see detailed data to see the tracts that fall within that zip code area. So it'll show you like these 17 census tracts and the, in this case, percent minority population for each of those tracts that fall within that zip code area. And then if you click on the see list of points from that pop-up, or over here on this little sidebar, select that drop down, you can also toggle over to see the point data that falls within that selected area. So this will show you, those PPP loans that went to companies with, fewer than 50 employees that fall within that zip code area. And this is something that, you can hover over or kind of toggle through it. It'll show you, where they're located on the map, but then you can also just download this so that you can kind of use it outside of PolicyMap, and it'll just generate as a CSV that you can open up in Excel. And you can do that same thing with the data layer as well. So, and you can kind of use like all those different boundaries that are in PolicyMap. So if you wanted to do this for, all of Cuyahoga County, you can, use kind of all these built-in boundaries to, extract data out to see, all the census tracts or all the, PPP loans within a given county.
Brian, quick question. Do you think eventually there will be a neighborhood boundary? I know that probably isn't very, specific, no like specific lines around that. I don't know if there is, but that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. We do not currently have like a nationwide neighborhood boundary built into PolicyMap. And definitely there are, I think it's something that we've looked into. They are definitely one of those trickier boundaries just because they can really
Very fluid.
vary. Yeah, they can be, one person's definition of a neighborhood can be different from another person's, and they might live in the same neighborhood. So, so we don't have anything like that. The one thing that we do have is kind of more, like I was mentioning, we work with like a lot of different city, like local government customers. And so we do have in some cases boundaries for like Philadelphia neighborhoods, and I think we have like Chicago neighborhoods, and a couple of like bigger cities. We do actually have like some neighborhood boundaries that we've gotten from like actual local sources. So those are things like that. Those are boundaries that we can also like turn on for, other users, because for the most part those are just like public data sets.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
So let me just close this sidebar, and just to show the how you can export a map that you've created when you have data points, data layers on the map. It's going to remove our PPP data for right now. So when you have your map created and you're ready to kind of export something out of PolicyMap, you can use this print icon on the right-hand side to open up this print preview, which will show you the area that you're zoomed to, with your current map view. You can, move this around to center, where you want to focus. You can edit the title by clicking on this pencil icon and saving any changes, and then you can use either PDF or PNG. PNG will be like an image export, and you can turn on and off like different legends and use lots of different options over there on the right hand side. And then once you click on export, this will just generate through your browser.
Brian, one of the things I noticed is that on the new version, doesn't look like it has the cutout feature that the legacy version did, where you could, like, if you had selected a certain census tract or an MSA, you could cut out that area and just highlight it. I didn't see that, or maybe I hadn't had that layer turned on, so it wasn't giving me the option.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit different, I think, in the new version. So if I do, let me just try and restore my defaults here, just so I can kind of have a little bit more visual distinction. And so if we wanted to, Cleveland would work. Should clip. And so if we wanted to use Cleveland, the boundary of Cleveland, to kind of clip it, cut out that location from the printed map, then you basically just can, before you click on the print button, you would just use this little scissors clip
Okay.
boundary. And then once you go to the print image, you'll see that it basically does kind of the same thing. It's just sort of like before going into the actual, print tool, you would just use that scissors icon to clip your boundary using your location, and then you can export this. And I think this you can also just kind of remove the actual boundary by checking that box over there. So any questions about what we've gone through so far? I think the next thing I would show is going to be the uploading of data.
The only question I have is one of the features that we would love to see in the future. I guess this is more of just a statement. We do a lot of analysis of our branching, lending, etc. And oftentimes we want to understand distances from like certain neighborhoods. And by neighborhoods, we mean like just groupings of protected classes, whether it might be like a LMI neighborhood or a African American community. So it would be nice to be able to measure, if there was a tool to measure distances. That would solve one of our only gripes with the software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now it is, yeah, we don't have the measuring tool. We have at least a scale bar, which we didn't used to have. Right. Just a very small improvement. Then and you do know about just sort of the radius, custom region, distance.
Right.
Yeah, which is kind of more of a, it doesn't allow for you to be able to say like, it's really more of a simple radius around like a point that you select. So it doesn't allow you to kind of like set a boundary and then say like within 3 miles of this boundary. So it's not exactly kind of what you're referring to there. So. Any other questions before I go to uploading your own data as points?
None for me.
Okay. So I'm going to open, while that spreadsheet's opening, So uploading your own data is going to be through this data loader tool. And so that is one of the features that is still just in the legacy version. So I'm going to toggle over to the legacy version, click on this data loader tab. So the data loader is a self-service tool, allows you to upload your own basically spreadsheet of addresses to display those as points on the map. You can upload up to 5,000 records within a given batch. You can do as many batches as you'd like. It's just 5,000 kind of per upload. Your data can have, I believe it's up to 50 fields in it. So, accommodates, a good bit of data that you might be looking to upload. So, I have just, to go through for demonstration, I have just like a very simple spreadsheet with very little data to it, a couple hundred points. It has, just these basic fields: street address, city, state, zip, county, and then, one additional column to it. So when you're using the data loader, really the key fields to have are going to be your street address, city, state, and zip code. As long as those are in the data, you should be in good shape as far as uploading it through the data loader.
Yeah, I would just note for everybody, take this opportunity to mention that we do not want to upload any personally identifiable information in any data set that we put onto the website. We specifically went through the third-party risk management process and indicated that there would be no customer data uploaded. We can upload addresses for loans, things like that, as long as they're completely separated of any customer ID. So we wouldn't be able to upload, let's say, an address and income associated with the applicant. We can upload the addresses on their own. That's publicly available information. We could create a unique identifier. We also want to avoid uploading loan numbers, things like that, to the website. Again, since that is proprietary information or private information. So just keep that in mind. If you want to upload data, if you're worried about what you can and can't upload, please feel free to contact me and I can help you through that process if you're trying to create a data set. Alternatively, if there's something that you want to upload that you think we have access to, we can also do that and then share the data set with you. And I will be sharing a copy of our branch network with you so that you all have that and you can use that for your own analysis.
Yeah, all very good points. So from this data loader tab, you do have the ability to add like individual points, but most folks are using the second option to upload a spreadsheet of points. You have to give your data set a name. So I think these are all Ohio, you can just say projects. And then here's where you can set the accessibility of the data. So you can either just have it available to yourself. You can do this select individuals, where you can put in email addresses like of other, Keybank users. You can also access that data that you uploaded through the data loader. So that's what Salem was just referencing. You can kind of share data, with other users. And then there's this publicly shareable option, which is a little bit of a misnomer, misnamed. It's really just for, it's not like anybody else, any other PolicyMap users would see your data. It's really just if you wanted the ability to be able to include like your data set that you uploaded through the data loader into an embeddable map that could be like on a website or something like that. So probably not something that you would be using very often. So then you can select your shape, icon, size, color, and then here's where you would go and find your data set that you want to upload. So I'm going to use my sample data loader data sets. You do have to save it as a CSV file. So it's something, when you're saving it from, you create your Excel sheet, save it as a CSV rather than an Excel. And we do have some tips for like setting up your spreadsheet and a sample spreadsheet as well. So once you've done this, you can click on the import spreadsheet button, and this next screen will kind of look at your data and try and identify, the street address, city, state, and zip, as long as they're kind of labeled as such and labeled with sort of common names, then it should pick that up. And then it will just identify other fields in your data, which you can choose different data types for. And then on the next screen, it will do the geocoding, where it's basically going to be trying to take that address and match it to an actual point location to like drop a pin on the map. So this next screen is a summary of the results of that geocoding. So it's telling us that 140 of 143 points were successfully geocoded. So all these ones with a green dot are the ones where it actually has placed a point on the map. You'll see the latitude, longitude coordinates for that point. You can sort on this geocoded column to see the red dots, which are going to be the ones that were not matched. And you can do edits to your address information on the fly here in these boxes to try and correct any kind of issues with your address to be able to get a correct match. So like this one, you can put in missing street numbers, and then once you've changed that, you'll see like it's a green dot now because it found that match. So once you've kind of addressed any of these errors or issues within your address data, and you're kind of done and ready to see that on the map and use it in PolicyMap, you can just click on this Save and Close button.
And Brian, if we upload data that has the address and the lat long, does it just override everything with the lat long? Do you know?
Yeah, if you have latitude, longitude in your data, that first screen will actually sort of say like, basically, do you just want to use your lat longs? And you'll just sort of put that in as the attribute to use for dropping the point. So this will show you, now here's, those points, showing them on this little map preview. So now you can, load this data on the maps page. If I click on that button here. So I'll just do this in the legacy tool for right now. So didn't really do that, but so if I go, you'll see it under this My Data tab. That's where you'll be able to find it. So if I click on the Ohio projects, that's the one that I just uploaded. So you can, click on this to see the attributes, based off of the data that you uploaded. You can access this in the new platform too, under the My Data tab. So you'll see the My Data tab also has any data sets that you've uploaded through the data loader. So it, will kind of also carry through over here, and I can see these Ohio projects as points on the map. Trying to clear my location. Okay, just outside of Cleveland. So here's the different Ohio projects, and you can pretty much work with this data similar to how there's not going to be like filters set up on data sets that you upload through the data loader, but you can use select locations, see which points fall within those locations. You can select an area on the map and see which points fall within. If I select this census tract, I can see there's one point within there. Click on the Ohio project. So you can pretty much use it the same way you would use PolicyMap's point data once you've loaded it in through that data loader. And just to go back to legacy, just to show you, if you wanted to make edits after the fact to that data. So if I go through the My Data tab and click on that little pencil icon, it brings you back to this data loader tab for that data set, and in here you can change like your permissions. You can add other individuals who can access it. You can change like the icon. You can also just go in to actually edit the individual points if you needed to add additional points or delete rows, different things like that. So then I think the other thing that I wanted to show with that, kind of to follow up on uploading your own data through that data loader, is that I think a lot of the times with some of our subscribers that are kind of like working in CRA is that they'll want to like upload the data, and then they'll want to be able to also, be able to download like a list of points that fall within, like low and moderate income tracks, or, CRA eligible tracks. So for that, functionality to be able to have your point and then attach like a data layer, like a census tract designation to those points, you can use this download data tool in the legacy version of the tool to be able to do that too. So if I click on federal guidelines, I'm going to put my CRA eligibility data on here. So that's going to be this, categorical census tract shading. And if I click on this download data button, this kind of more full data download feature, which again is just in the legacy version of the tool right now, it's eventually going to be rolled over into the new platform too, and will work very similarly. It will just be kind of something you would access through that sidebar that we looked at before. But you can download your data layer, your data points, or this third option is really kind of the special part of this more complete download feature, where you can download your points with that layer data attached to it. So, download your Ohio projects with the tract CRA eligibility designation attached to it. So if you click on that option, click next, then you can, select, what location you want to download for. And you can change this if you wanted to just look at Cuyahoga County. You can use a different location as sort of your bounding geography, but we can just keep Ohio, and this is obviously just a census tract data layer. Click on confirm your download. And those types of points with layer downloads typically will be something that you'll see arrive by email. So rather than popping up through your browser, you'll just get like an email notice. And sometimes those get caught up in your junk or clutter email folder. So just sort of to be aware of that. But I'll open up an example of points with layer. And this was actually just, I took the PPP data, like a subset of PPP data, and did that points with layer download to see, which ones are in low, moderate income communities. So this is the type of export that you'll see, where like the first 4 rows or 4 columns will be the data layer information. So the census tract, the tract status for CRA will be this column that shows you, whether it's not eligible, moderate income, low income, different designations. And then all of this is going to be where all the point data starts to pick up. And this is all using the PPP data. And then if you wanted to be able to see, just those that fall within those low, moderate income communities, you can in Excel just like filter for, low, moderate income. And here's, those loans that are remaining. And I think there's like about 68 of these PPP loans that I specifically pulled out. So that this is what that export will look like, so that you can kind of work with it in Excel to be able to drill down on different, filters. Any other questions anybody has? I know we're pretty much at our time of 3:15, so let me close this stuff out.
I'll just say for the group, I'm still trying to bring Julia and Bob and Damon for the time he's got left up to speed on this. But if you think that there's a need that you have for the system, feel free to schedule some time with us, and we can brainstorm through how we can use the tool to add value for what you're trying to get done. Or if there's a data set that you want to see if we can upload it to the system, we can do that as well. We are working within those boundaries that Brian mentioned, so there's a limit of about 5,000 records per upload. Typically, we'll isolate our analysis to a specific area, and that will help us get within that limit. But yeah, just feel free to reach out to us. We're also going to try and set up some time to walk through with you and maybe have you run through some analysis, a little bit of learning by doing. But yeah, feel free to contact me, and then if we have questions, we can always regroup with Brian if there's something that we're not sure how to accomplish.